Thanks, Gilda. Can everyone hear me? Okay, good. All right, well, first of all, thanks everyone for joining, and welcome. We're going to be talking today about hands-on building hyper-personalized journeys. My name is Tim Ziter. I am a marketing champion, work for Cervello. We are a partner that helps clients build out marketing automations. I'm joined here, I have the special pleasure of joined with Amanda Isaac. She is a director of marketing automation over at Fidelity. So how did we get started here at Connections? So a couple of years ago, one of our colleagues, Steve Weathers, was presenting here at Connections. And we were super excited. We were in the audience together, and he did an amazing job. And so we're like, Amanda and I were like, we got to do this. So we put together a couple presentations, submitted it, took a little bit to get here, but we're finally here, and we're super excited to talk about our topic today, which is hands-on building and journey builder. Next slide. So we broke it up into two sections. Like Gilda said, a little bit of content here. The first half, we're going to talk about hands-on sessions where you can build in Marketing Cloud and Salesforce as a team. We're going to be talking about the what and the why, the rules, the roles, the format, and some tips and tricks. Then we're going to go right into Journey Builder to give you some hyper-personalized content ideas for three layers, a crawl, walk, and run example.
All right, can everyone hear me? Okay, great. So kicking this off, what is a hands-on swarm? A hands-on swarm is a collaborative working session where people of all skill levels come together to build, iterate, and test on solutioning inside of systems like Salesforce, Marketing Cloud, and Sales Cloud. And this is a aspect of Jira methodology that Tim and I have used, which has been very successful. So some key characteristics of a swarm involve creative problem solving, real-time learning and support, skill-agnostic participation. So, people of a non-technical background and people with a technical background can kind of come together and learn from each other. So it's a really great learning opportunity. And then there's high energy and momentum. So it's awesome. And why would you do a swarm? It accelerates solutioning, so you'd be amazed by how much you can accomplish in a 60 to 90 minute session. It fosters cross-functional understanding. So kind of mentioned earlier that you learn a lot from other people. You're upskilling as you're doing this, so everybody's learning kind of on the fly. And then it builds team ownership. So when you have worked to build a solution, you're invested, and that gives you more ownership of a solution.
All right, let's talk about the rules of a swarm. And you don't have to have rules, but it kind of helps you give a little bit of guardrails. So everybody builds at a swarm, not just developers, your BA, your marketer, your strategist, your scrum master, everyone's building. You're on the clock, so you've got 60 to 90 minutes. You want a defined time for those swarms, and you want to get something out of those swarms. You want to build something every one of those 60 to 90 minute sessions. So don't build complex components, build one or two pieces of those components to get out of that swarm. You want two to more to a build, so in that 60 to 90 minute section, you almost have one builder building for that entire time. You want a bunch of different builders so that you can spread the work around. And then you want to use those real world use cases. Don't just use those use cases you might find in a certification or some sort of academic use case. Take your real work that you're working as a team and build them out in a swarm. And last but not least, if it's your first time at a swarm, so taken from like Fight Club, you want to be building. So, it's a great way to welcome in those new team members into the swarm. Don't challenge them too quickly off the bat. Have them maybe share their screen and just make sure that they have the platform that they need to build within the team.
So in any given swarm, there's typically 4 roles. There's an instructor, a builder, a watcher, and a timekeeper. So the instructor is typically someone on the team, maybe a tech lead, who will kick things off, but really you can mix it up. Instructor could be anyone on the team. You just want to maintain the consistency of how you go about on a build. Some things to keep in mind if you're an instructor is to be patient, because swarms never go as planned. So you got to kind of go with the flow. You got to meet the builder where they are. And it can be really nerve-wracking sharing your screen in the post-COVID world, in the virtual space. So just being patient and practicing sometimes a solution when you have a tech problem, practicing the solution in advance. So if a solution doesn't come organically, you at least have a path forward to an end result. The builders, anyone can be a builder. It's important to volunteer. Things to keep in mind: be open. It gets easier over time. The repetition is important. So the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be as a builder. Have your platforms open, so pull those up in advance. We all know the load time, and having that ready will allow you to move quickly through your problems. And then just continue to volunteer and have the opportunity to step in. The watcher, while watchers are not in the instructor or builder role, they still play a very important role in a swarm. It's important to be attentive. It's not an opportunity to check your Slack or your Teams or email, but if you're off screen, you can still update documentation on the things that are being built. You can, on top of documentation, you can also research any issues that are coming up that might be helpful, and just be a team cheerleader. So cheer on everybody who's building. Lastly, we have a timekeeper, and a timekeeper is just someone who's gonna, make sure that everything stays on track and alert the team, alert the instructor if you're getting close to the finish.
All right, let's talk about a couple of format options for Swarm. Number one is finding those right topics. So spend the time to circulate ideas for the team up in advance, and then when that Swarm starts, list out all those different topics and then prioritize them. Then you're going to want to time box them. Right? You want to have them be 10, 15, 25 minutes. You don't want to take up the entire Swarm for each one of those topics. And then you're going to, this like Amanda said, this is an agile method. It's also more tailored to the virtual environment, but also can be in person. But the key is just sharing your screen. Have those platforms ready so that you can just transition right on and continue to build. And then, be prepared if you're the instructor to ask for volunteers. Sometimes you might need to volunteer somebody to present, but always trying to push those volunteers. And if you're a builder, just always try to be open to volunteering. And last but not least, you want to make sure that you go from like the simple to the complex. Don't start out with your first swarm building a complex journey that you only get 10% of and it takes you 10 swarms to finish. Build that data extension, or build that basic email, or maybe a couple of different journey activities. Don't go for the super complex. Amanda and I have had incredible, very complex swarms, so get incredibly complex, but start them out simple as your best practice.
So just to kind of reiterate what Tim has mentioned, some tips to have a great swarm. You want a safe space, you want to start simple, and you want to be prepared. So swarms are a really great environment for people to learn and grow and feel comfortable, and being in that environment kind of encourages people to feel comfortable moving at the pace that they're best suited for, and that kind of allows that learning to stick. And then for people to be met where they are in their learning journey. As Tim mentioned, you want to start simple, so you want to build a data extension, email, and as you mentioned, if you jump into that complex code, you're going to lose people. So that's a great place to go. You want to build momentum. And lastly, be prepared. So it is important to kind of go through a build a couple times, and so you have that opportunity to pursue a path if you're kind of getting off course, but you still have the ability to let things happen naturally. And it also eliminates blockers.
All right, so one of the things that we love to do in our swarms is build out journeys. So we're going to transition over to talking about the three different areas we're going to be talking about today, those hyper-personalized journeys. Our crawl example is really setting up the foundation for that hyper-personalization in your content, particularly the emails. And Number two, Amanda's going to take you through the entry events and journey builder that you want to use using your toolkit. And then number three, in our run example, we're going to talk about building fully personalized emails and content, and then covering the wait until event functionality. So the first area we're going to talk about is setting up that foundation in your content, particularly in this example, email for success. So we recommend using that code snippet block at the top of your email. You can see here on the top, this is an example of an email design system. Now you can use AmpScript throughout your email, you can use it inline, but if you're manipulating data, pulling in data, you want to have that data be pulled in and stored in a code snippet block at the top. And once it's stored in there, you want to use some of that key function to set a strong foundation for your personalization, like attribute value, which will normalize the data, won't cause errors if you have like a null value. And then be comfortable using those if-then statements if you're unsure about what your data is going to be. So in this example, we just want to output a first name. That data could come in as a full name, it could be a variety of different sources. So in this example, we're using an index of function to check for a space. If it's a space, we know it's a full name, and then we want to do a substring, which just takes out that first name to present out the first name in the personalization. So if we take a look at the next slide, all we're looking to do is to output that first name. You can see in the data that the actual full name has come in. So even with basic personalization, you want to use those functions to make sure that your data is scalable.
So our walk example of journey functionality is going to be our entry event, and typically with Marketing Cloud users, you may see Salesforce data extensions as a starting point for journeys. These typically run, they may run off query-based automations. They're, flexible. You have the ability to kind of start there, but Salesforce data entry, we don't want to blow through that one, because you have the ability with Salesforce data entry to pull people nearly real time from other systems, and it's a very scalable option. And then lastly, API events. You don't want to lose those out of your toolkit. They have a really great place and purpose, especially if you don't have object triggered entry points, or you're trying to pull in records from a third-party system.
All right, let's talk about our run example, which is creating hyper-personalized content, fully built-out emails. In this example, we're building out a fully built-out table. So in this email example, we've got an abandoned cart email where we're looking to just replicate what are those cart items that someone put into their cart. And you can see over on the email on the right, there isn't a table in the actual content. It's just a single AmpScript variable that's outputting this entire table. So, what are some recommendations on building those complex tables or content in your email? Number one, you need to understand your HTML. Be very comfortable with it. And if we go to the next slide, you want to be able to build those table rows. So, you might want to understand if you take a table and replicate just a hard-coded table in your content, and really understand how that HTML formatting works for every single piece and component, every table row, every table cell. And then you're going to want to set that formatting as variables in that code snippet block at the top of your email. Number two, you're going to be cycling through a lot of data. So you're going to want to use functions like the lookup functions, the lookup rows, the lookups, where in this example, we're cycling through all of that abandoned cart data and doing a for loop to pull in the backpack, the description, the price, etc. for every single one of those table rows. And then you might use the lookup function to pull in specific data points there. And then last but not least, you're going to want to bring this all together using the concat function, where you might be pulling in the HTML itself in a string, and or those variables which might include the HTML format, or the variables that include the data altogether. So the power of AmpScript in Marketing Cloud, you can create anything, and even custom HTML tables.
All right. So last, for the Journey Builder advanced option, we wanted to talk to you about the wait until event step. The wait until event step is an awesome option for trying to create the opportunity to engage almost immediately with someone who's expressed interest in your journey. So the value of this is that you don't have to wait on a decision split or a wait period of like 2 to 7 days. As soon as someone expresses interest, you can respond in near real time. So one tip that we have is that you want to use this in a very focused manner and utilize it for your key journey stages first. So while it is an amazing tool, it does take a little bit of work to stand up. So, it is a great opportunity to leverage something like a swarm to build this out in chunks. One thing you're going to want to get familiar with, if your team is not already familiar, is API calls. So you can leverage a tool like Postman or Insomnia to test and practice sending those API calls for the wait until event, because if you need to pass that subscriber key in order to move that subscriber forward in their journey. So the next thing you want to do is you also need to be familiar with Marketing Cloud triggers. So getting familiar with that, the API triggers. So getting familiar with that too is important. Typically, this is going to be built in a process where you're referencing a cloud page. It has SSJS in order to make that API call. So your team may want to get familiar too, building out cloud pages and understanding those core SSJS functions to make that work. And then if you're wanting to, you can lean into AMP script as well to if that's your preferred method. So Tim and I wanted to say thank you so much for coming. We hope that you have learned a little bit about how you can leverage swarms for some of your hands-on building, as well as how swarms can be utilized for building out hyper-personalized journeys and marketing automation solutions. We also hope that you got a good sense of some crawl, walk, run examples, and we thank you for your time. So hope you have a great connections.